Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I've been listening to this debate. Interesting. I often quote James Baldwin. I'm going there again. Baldwin said in an essay later in his life, Notes on the House of Bondage, that the option to vote is so necessary as to not be argued. Here we are arguing the option to vote. I think some people wouldn't think it's about the option to vote, but that's what this is. But what's important about what Baldwin was saying is not just the option to vote, but that your vote matters. That's what this is about, right? Anyone who is concerned about issues of discrimination, and I heard earlier that one of our colleagues thinks no one in this room is more committed to fighting for discrimination than them, and I would never argue with someone about how committed they are to discrimination. And I think that none of us should be doing that. But I will say there are people in this room who have been fighting against discrimination for their entire lives, decades. There's some of us who have put our lives literally on the line multiple times fighting against discrimination. And so I would be careful in suggesting how strong a freedom fighter you are because you're in this chamber, or because you have talked about issues of one thing or the other. But back to what we're talking about here. People keep asking questions over and over about a part of this bill, and that is about multiple parts of this bill: the pre-clearance part and the part about where the votes diverge. If you know anything about the Voting Rights Act, you understand. I mean, as soon as I heard about this just made perfect sense. Right? We've talked about this for decades. We fought about to get to this place for decades. People want to know why John Lewis's name is on here. John Lewis was a student who organized bus boycotts so that we could get voting rights. He was a young man who in 1964 did help to organize the Freedom Summer so that we could have voting rights. And in 1965, we talked about that already. And you could go all the way through his life. Why is his name on here? Why wouldn't his name be on here? But you know, we do something in this chamber, we do something in this country. We talk about people and we hold them up, and we talk about what a great legacy they have, and then we diverge from that in the actions we take. So there are going to be a lot of folks who talk about John Lewis and what a hero he is. And then when you look at that board, their actions are going to say something different than their words have said. There are going to be a lot of folks who say, you know, we want this country to be one thing or the other. Well, the way you get there is by what we do here. The people who are concerned about the courts being involved. Without the courts, I probably wouldn't be here. The person who spoke before me probably wouldn't be here. The courts have stepped in when legislatures have been recalcitrant. The courts have stepped in when people have stood in the courthouse door. The courts have stepped in when the words people say do not match the actions that they take. The courts should step in here when that's true. People want to know, well, how do we know the preference? Somehow we seem to know that preference when we're doing redistricting. Somehow we seem to know that preference when it matters. There's a reason the districts are split the way they are. There's a reason that the rules changed the way they are. There is a reason we are here. History matters. Today, the things that we do today will be the things that are in the history books tomorrow. And as important as it is today, it will remain important tomorrow. And I am so tired of hearing about progress. We've made more progress. Be happy with the progress. You know how many people have died listening to that? Progress. Do you know that I will die and someone after I die will talk about the progress we made on race in this country? I don't want progress. I want to be treated like a human being, period, the same way some folks in this chamber get to be treated. The people who are depending on us to pass this bill don't want your progress. They want to be treated fully human today. They mourn for the people who came before them who have not been. Don't tell me that you understand if you're talking to me about progress. Progress means I am not treated the same, even as I stand here, even as I give this speech. That's what this bill is about. I also think it's important to address some of the things that have been said, because I want to make sure that we understand what we're saying. People talk about the lack of clarity in this bill because of things like it's more likely than not. We heard that earlier today. We would not pass a law that says something unclear like more likely than not, except that, at least I hope the attorneys around here know that that's the evidentiary standard that's built into so many statutes. Lord, I'd be here all night if I tried to figure out how many statutes it was built into. And it's clear to us when we talk about the preponderance of evidence, which is that particular evidentiary standard, what we're talking about. Look, there is an American fiction, and there's also a Connecticut fiction that we're all equal. That's just not true. This legislature has the opportunity to make us more equal. And I just want to say this because I know that some people think this is a partisan thing. It's not. We have cities in this state where people are very happy that those cities have a lot of people who are not of the majority, the big majority we talk about in this country, but who are a significant part of that city, where the city does not have people who look like those folks as their leader. Oftentimes, we'll have a whole bunch of people who don't look like those folks in leadership in multiple ways. So it goes both ways. It doesn't matter to me what party you're in. What matters to me is when that vote comes down, however you thought you were walking in here, what are you actually going to say? Are you going to tell me it's okay to have to wait for progress? It's okay for my children, who are now 5 years old, when they're my age, to be talking about progress, because it's not okay. That's what I understand this bill to do. That's not what I understand this bill to do. That's what I know this bill to do. And so I just hope when you take your vote, you listen to the people who you're asking the question about. Because if you ask the people what their preference is, they'd have no problem telling you. As a matter of fact, they've had no problem telling this state. They've had no problem telling this country. The problem isn't they haven't been telling us. The problem is we can't know. The problem is we don't care to listen. Thank you, Madam President.